Okay, let's go. Hi, everyone. I'm Kaylee Watson. I'm Deputy Editor at Journo Resources. And in this Q&A, we'll be discussing the long debated subject amongst journalists, which is, do I really need an NCTJ diploma? Today, we're joined by Alison Kershaw and Sean Ho, both experienced journalists and reporters who also lead courses at PA Media Academy, who will be able to tell you all about the NCTJ and answer all of your questions. So let's do some introductions. Alison, would you like to go first?
Afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm Alison. I work at PA Media Academy. I'm one of our senior trainers here, so I have a long background in journalism. I started out in local papers, moved to the Press Association, it was then, it's now PA Media, quite a few years ago now, where I did lots of different jobs. General reporter, I was a royal reporter for a while, then I was an education correspondent for about 10 years, and then I went and worked at the High Court, covering things like the Johnny Depp trial and Wagatha, before moving on to the news desk. And I've been working in training out apprentices and NCTJ Diploma students for about 2 years now. So that's me.
Fantastic. Okay. Oh, and how about you, Sean?
Yeah, I'm Sean Howe. I'm the course leader here at PA Media Academy. So I'm the person who ultimately runs all our fast track and part-time training for people doing an NCTJ diploma. Like Ali, I began in kind of local papers in quite a very conventional way, and then became a kind of crime specialist, and then went on to edit a number of national magazines. And the latter part of my career, I ran the editorial operations for a large international defence and security publisher covering everything from terrorism trends through to defence trends right around the globe, with teams dotted all over the world. So that's me. Make good use of me today.
Thanks so much for your introductions. So I guess a great place to start would be, what is the NCTJ diploma and why is it important to journalists?
Do you want me to take that one first?
Shall I kick off a little bit on that one first? Okay. Yeah, so the NCTJ Diploma is a really good grounding for journalists who are starting out. It covers how to write a news story, all those basics, the who, what, where, when, and how of news, which is what every kind of journalist needs to know just to get their, get them started. It also covers things like really important media law, things like libel, contempt of court, all of that stuff that's really important for you to know so that you feel safe and happy when you're going out writing stories, that you know what you're doing, and importantly that your editors know what they're doing as well. Also covers public affairs, and then lots of other kind of interesting modules like video or radio, magazine journalism. Sean, do you want to jump in? Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I always think the diploma is great for getting your first foot in the door. Like Ali said, if you go and have a look at the sort of jobs you might be applying for, you'll see people asking for it. But also down the line, in those days, that might be 2 years from now, you are going to be the person doing what Ali used to do, where you're sitting on that news desk and a big story comes in and you've got to press the yes, we will publish, no, we won't publish button. And the law, and these days, journalistic ethics, the IPSO code, that sort of thing, are really, really critical. This is your chance to take care of that imposter syndrome, get your qualification, get your first job, but have the knowledge that you know you can rely on moving forward. And I hear this time and time again from people who've graduated from the course.
In that case, if there were perhaps 3 key modules that you see as most valuable, can you tell us a bit more about them in depth?
So I'll take one, and then I'll let Sean. I'll give you one. Well, I'll give you 1.5, and then I'll let Sean give you the other 1.5. Because I think we're probably good at that. How does that sound? So I think for me, both as a journalist and an editor, there are the ones that I would focus on first. For me, is essential journalism. Can someone write a news story? Are they going to be accurate? Are they going to get the facts right? That's like absolutely key thing to know. So essential journalism, that's one of the core modules of the NCTJ. It teaches you everything you need to know about how to do those things. Write a clean news story that's easy to read, that engages your audience. And for me, I think everyone will probably not be surprised to hear me say media law. It's just such a key thing. Your editor wants to know that they can trust you when they go out, that what you've written is safe. You as well, gives you so much confidence as a journalist when you've done that, to know, yeah, do you know what, I'm going to go out and I know what I'm doing, I know what the boundaries are, I know what the law says, I know what I know what I'm doing on that side of it. And we often find that we have former trainees come back to us and say, oh, you know, I was more up to date than like some of the more senior people on the news, you know, in the newsroom, because I've only just done it, so I know all the latest updates. So yeah, for me, they're the two key ones, I think, and I'll let Sean join in to give you a third, and maybe cover.
Yeah, I would say in all my my rather checkered book collection on my shelf, the only book that gets regularly renewed is the kind of legal guide, because you've got to stay up to date. So I would agree with Ali there. And I think the third one, which is really useful for gaining employment and showing off these days, right? Because you need a unique selling point. There are lots of great journalists out there. What makes you special? It's something called journalism for digital audiences. And I always say that sort of teaches you, you know, where to go and find stories, where you can go and find people to gain stories from online. And equally importantly, how are you going to promote them? You know, someone like Journo Resource is really skilled at knowing how to reach out to people. And so writers on all publications need to be able to do that. And there are lots of jobs on things like digital desks that open up. People will expect you to have a knowledge of this. And as Ali said, you could be the leading light at that magazine, that newspaper, that site that you work on, by being able to show off that you've actually got a qualification in this. So I think that's a really nice tool to help market yourselves in the wonderful world of work.
Add into that, I think that the journalism for digital audience, also part of that module gives students a really nice portfolio piece that they can show, that shows all those skills that they have, that they can then take to future employers and say, look, hey, I did this fantastic feature about something that you're really interested in, and shows off all your digital skills, you know, creating video, graphics, embedding social media, all of those kind of things.
I mean, you touched upon it there, in that the NCTJ, the content is always being updated. And now that there are graduates who find themselves with perhaps more up-to-date experience than some of their senior colleagues. So what are the more recent modules that have been added to the NCTJ that you think are really valuable to the market right now?
The NCTJ themselves are doing some stuff on artificial intelligence and stuff around that. I think that's worth a look. We're all kind of catching up on that. And I think that's going to be an emerging area for journalists as we go forward. How do you sort of tame the beast and make it work for you, but make sure that, you know, all those great qualities that we expect to see in our copy are worked into it? And the one that some people love and some people shy away from, but you know what? It's fantastic. Is the video journalism. So when you're doing your news writing and everything, actually right alongside all your words and how to lay them out, we teach you, certainly at PA Media, we teach you how to kind of plan, edit, shoot videos, how to edit using industry standard software. And you do that alongside everything else. So whenever you're publishing that lovely feature that Ali talked about, you've got a terrific minute or two of video that you can include there. Again, look around your favorite regional reads, and you will see that's what they're doing online. Increasingly, video is the area that you need to be into. So I would say those two areas would be the ones.
I think as well, it's important to say that the modules that have been there for a long while, like media law, are constantly updated as well. I know the way we teach it at PA Media Academy is very much, what are the latest updates? This is what happened recently. So you will look at the, you know, recent defamation cases. You'll look at what's happening in the courts. You know, you'll look at different anonymity cases and make sure that the students are getting that information, that, you know, that they know all the latest updates of what's happening.
Yeah, journalism trainers around the country, there's a course called Public Affairs that we teach, which really is politics. We've had quite a lot of prime ministers in recent times, so you're constantly updating these materials to keep them relevant. And I dare say gambling in elections will be something else that we expected to be known in, you know, come September. So yeah, there's a lot of it that gets updated all the time.
We're getting a lot of questions coming. So before we sort of move on to perhaps the more circumstantial side of things, I guess one of the biggest questions that people will have up front is to do with the money. So what are the fees to study in NCTJ, and what funding is available for prospective students?
Here at PA Media, the fee for whether you do a full-time or a part-time course, a fast-track full-time course is 19 weeks. Part-time lasts for a kind of academic year. It's 5,563. If you apply early enough and you accept your place early enough, we will discount that a little bit for you. In terms of funding sources, the one that I always recommend at interview, I'll talk to every single student about it, is something called the Journalism Diversity Fund. So after this fascinating broadcast, feel free to get on your phones and have a look. And they give out bursaries 4 times a year to people attending NCTJ courses. And they will look at all kinds of aspects of diversity. They're a really approachable group of people. So I would always recommend people having a look on there and see if you can, if you meet any of the criteria that they use. They'll ask you lots of questions about how you're trying to break into journalism. They like to see evidence of that. But they're very, very, very approachable, and their site is very helpful. So I would recommend them.
That's really great advice. Thank you. Now, in job applications for journalism roles, we often see that they list applicants having an NCTJ as like a preferred requirement, which is probably what has led a lot of people to join us on this QA today.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, who should and who perhaps shouldn't undertake an NCTJ course? What kind of journalist is it best suited to, or what kind of roles does it best prepare people for?
I personally would say it really does prepare journalists, or would-be journalists, for lots of different kinds of roles. There are different things that you can do to tailor that diploma to what you're interested in. So, for example, a lot of it, there is that news element. We do teach you, all journalists need to know that basics of how to write a news story. That's where everyone kind of starts from: accuracy, getting the point, nailing an intro. But there's modules on magazines, there's modules on radio. We run a sports journalism module, so a lot of our students are really interested in being sports journalists, so they've all done that. We have during our sports module, students go out and kind of cover matches and do live blogs, so it's really tailored to that. We've just run a video module where our students have gone out and created lots of really fantastic videos, so it really kind of you can tailor it to how you want to tailor it to. There are the core modules that I would say that all journalists need to have, but it is possible to kind of make it what you want to make it.
Yeah, and I think a benefit that we all need our confidence boosted. No matter, even I need my confidence boosted. And the great thing here is that all the trainers, almost all, are working journalists at the same time. So you might be learning from someone who's working at Sky, and they will say, "Oh, there are some openings coming up," or have you thought about this? Or let's say you're going for a job at the BBC, you could speak to one of the people who's from the BBC to say, "Oh, I've got this application, and how can I prepare well?" And they will help you, as Ali said, one with the subject matter you're covering, and number 2, in growing the contacts. Journalism is, right or wrongly, is a real contacts business. So developing that know-how and contacts is an important kind of non-official part of the course. So that's something to watch out for as well.
We've had quite a few writers who submitted some questions beforehand, say that they work in like more niche journalism sectors like travel or culture, music, or having predominantly done like feature writing mainly. So what are your thoughts about like if this is best suited for them? Do you think because they're already like working in quite a narrow field, I guess, do you think they would still get something out of it were they to take it on?
Yeah, totally. I'm just going to jump in there, Ali, but the magazine specialism that Ali talked about is really at its heart, it's all about feature writing. And, being able to produce a high quality feature, be able to embed video if you need to, photography if you need to, hit the deadline, turn it around. Where do you get the ideas from? How are you going to promote that digitally? Even at Cosmo, they want you to have the largest possible audience for your piece. How are you going to find that quirky piece on something? Where are you going to source that from? So we teach that all the time. It's not just hard news sits at the core of it, but all those other elements sit there as well. And remember, it's real easy. I mean, I did this once upon a time, a million years ago. It's so hard to break into journalism, or it's perceived to be, that you concentrate on that first job. But remember that when they make you the editor of that travel magazine with beautiful glossy pages and fantastic locations to go to, if that goes legally wrong, if there's a court case that goes to court and you report it badly, you still need to have all those great qualifications that we've taught you in the back of your head And I think it's trickier to move around in the industry. Let's say go to a big newspaper and take over their travel section if you don't have that proper training. Because on the one hand, it's about helping you get a job, but on the other hand, it's helping the person who's hiring you think, do you know what? I've probably made the right decision. On balance, they've probably got the knowledge to do this successfully. So I think there's balancing out there.
And I think a lot of journalism jobs now, editors, when they're looking for new people, they get so many applicants that they use that NCTJ diploma as a filter. So they're looking to see as a baseline because editors know if someone's got that, they've got the very basics nailed on. So and so they'll use that as a filter for who they may be going to shortlist. And there is evidence and research that's shown that people with NCTJ diplomas are more likely to get jobs after they've graduated too.
We have a lot of early career students that are probably asking themselves what is the most efficient route for them fulfilling their dreams of becoming a journalist. So I guess what differs between an NCTJ and perhaps a typical undergraduate or master's qualification in journalism? Are they held in equal standing?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of them. They're all great. That would be my starting point. But if you go and look at what people are asking for, as you alluded to earlier, Kaylee, with regard to job ads, they're very clear quite a lot of the time that they would prefer the NCTJ. And the reason is, I think, is because it's industry related. It's not trying to achieve anything else. It's practically focused. It's giving you the skills and knowledge that they know that you are going to need. And I think they put a real premium on that, as Ali said. So it's not to say they wouldn't look at you elsewhere. It's not to say you couldn't pick up contacts elsewhere. But I think there's a real premium. And in reality, certainly with us, you can do it very quickly. You can complete your NCTJ in about 18 and a half weeks. And I think we mentioned at the start, it's going to cost you about £5,500. If you contrast that, for example, with your MAs, and this audience will know exactly what that costs and so on, I think that's a pretty good return that you're going to see there. And it's all about making you marketable and getting those early jobs locked away.
We've had a question in the chat that sort of leads on from that a little bit by Lily Busby. They said, I have a journalism degree that isn't NCTJ accredited. Do I still need an NCTJ diploma in addition to that?
It's a good question, Lily. I work somewhere where we do NCTJ diplomas, so I'm going to say, yes, you need an NCTJ diploma, right? And you can say, well, you would say that, and that'd be fair criticism. However, I go back to what I said at the beginning. I look at the jobs that I see advertised in all those lovely places you can go and see those jobs, and so many of them ask for an NCTJ qualification. It's not to say you wouldn't get a job with your journalism degree, but I just think it makes you so much more marketable. And when you look at the modules we're covering off, you've got to say, okay, do I feel good on all those subjects? Do I know it to the required standard? If you've been doing it over a long period of time, you're used to turning it around to tight deadlines, because you will be expected to do that if you've got an NCTJ course.
Do prospective students need to have completed some kind of... I wasn't sure if Alison was going to interject there. Sorry. Do prospective students need to have completed some kind of work experience before undertaking the NCTJ? Or is it feasible for students to start with no experience at all?
If I can jump in, I'm going to give a nuanced answer, yes and no. That's me, Kaylee. I would prefer it if you've had a go. And the reason is I'll probably ask you at interview, why on earth you think a career in journalism is for you? You're realistic about it. If you found it tough to do when you've done it. So it's great to see that. That will always mark out applicants. But it's not absolutely essential. And we do take quite a few people who don't have very much journalism experience, because during those 19 weeks with us, you will publish a minimum of 10 pieces. So you will leave at the end of the course, quite apart from your qualification, with a whole portfolio of published work behind you, so you can catch up really quickly.
I think our students do tend to come out with really good, nice portfolios. I think at last count, sort of every single our student was getting a gold standard NCTJ portfolio mark. I think to add to that, just to add to what Shauna said, I think it's nice for us when we always see people that are enthusiastic. We know it's not always easy to get work experience, you know, in the industry. So people who are enthusiastic can really demonstrate the knowledge that they do have, you know, what they're aware of in the news, you know, that they can show that they keep up to date with particular, you know, not just their own areas of interest, but a general kind of awareness of what's going on, you know, just in the country and with the news agenda. That enthusiasm is great and helps to carry a lot of students through for their diploma, because it's an intense course. It's a, you know, it's a full-on course, fun but intense.
Yeah.
If a prospective student already had done a journalism qualification and had done similar modules without that certification of the NCTJ, would they still have to take similar modules? And if some have already completed modules on a distance learning program, would they have to redo them if they were to join the PA course?
We would look at them on a case-by-case basis, and we would check it out with our friends at the NCTJ, who are kind of like the examining body. So if that distance, let's say, for example, that distance learning course was done with them and you've got 100 words a minute shorthand, right? Then we would contact them and say, would they be able to ascribe a credit to that, which they may or may not do, but we'd look at it on a case-by-case basis. So I wouldn't be put off applying. I would just say, make it clear to us that you're hoping to do that, and then we can check that out for you.
You've also had some questions about the accessibility of the course. So I guess my first one would be, you mentioned the course being between 18 and 19 weeks. Is that full-time, or is that on a part-time basis as well?
That's our full-time course. So that's every day, Monday to Friday. The students are in with us every day in person. The part-time course is different. The part-time course runs over a year, and it runs sort of one evening and a Saturday a week. Sean, I don't know if you want to pick up a little bit on the part-time.
Yeah, it's a kind of academic year. It'll kick off in September, back end of September, finish around about the end of June. Tuesday nights are remote for a couple of hours. Most of the Saturdays, not all the Saturdays, but are in person. You come into centre. And it's a really, really popular choice for people who are holding down a full-time job or caring duties, or, you know, just balancing other things. And it's a nice course, a nice cohort, and they always do really well. So yeah, you can do it either way, whichever way suits you.
Yes, that was something that I was going to touch upon, in that, you know, many of the prospective students for the NCTJ may consider themselves a more mature student. They may have already done a degree or have work and family commitments. And one person mentioned that, you know, like they asked about what flexible accommodations can be made for those who want to study the course and make it as accessible as possible, because in their words, they say that people in those circumstances are often time and money poor, which is very true. And as you've said, that it is very, you know, it is an intense course. It has placements inside it, and, you know, a lot of examinations per module. So, you know, is there flexibility while studying it?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is there's no difference on how we kind of screen you. You apply, and then typically there's an interview and a very straightforward kind of aptitude test, if you like, a written test that we do. And then we usually chat at the interview stage about which is going to work best for you. And if you've got lots of other commitments, or geography is an issue. So I have people in from Norwich, Coventry, all over the place who do the part-time route, because it requires less travel. They can plan it better. They can do other things around it. And we're all going to have that odd Saturday, that odd, I don't know, wedding, that thing that we've got to go and do. And in terms of, that's the time factor. In terms of the money factor, I would definitely encourage people, as I said before, to go and have a look at the JDF. There are PA pay into them, or a lot of national news providers pay in. And the idea is to improve diversity in the newsroom. We want people from all kinds of backgrounds, right? Like, so if you're busy balancing childcare, or you're looking for after parents or whatever, we want all sorts of people in journalism. So there is quite a degree of flexibility there. Don't let it put you off, is what I would say. Don't let it put you off.
I mean, you mentioned the part-time option, but is there a remote option available for those who are perhaps more in the
Not
region?
through us, no. We don't do a remote option at all. It's we only do those two options.
On the part-time course, the Tuesday night is remote, but that's a dial-in, but the Saturday is in person.
Yeah. Increasingly, we will see fewer in-person Saturdays. I think we'll do some of it remote, but it's not. There's no option that we do where the whole thing is remote, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm. We've had quite a few people ask in the chat for a bit more info about the JDF. A lot of people have asked if age is a characteristic too. So could you talk a bit more about that?
Sorry, Kaylee, if what is a characteristic?
Age, sorry.
Oh, age. Oh, do you know, I don't know. But the Journalism Diversity Fund are very friendly, extremely approachable, and all kinds of things are factors. And people sometimes, come to it and go, "Oh, it's looking for this," but it's all sorts of things. Class, for example, I know is one that they care very deeply about. So I think age probably would be a factor for them, and I think class background can be all sorts of things. So honestly, the best advice I'm a very poor advert for them, but go along. It's very easy to read the site. They'll tell you the dates that you have to have your applications in by, and they're very helpful in terms of giving advice. In fact, if you went along and you're refused for a bursary, they will give you feedback, and you can apply a second time using that feedback to help your application. So, really worth having a look. Unfortunately, we don't control who it goes to. It's completely independent, but I love the idea of it. We do see a number of students come through supported by them, as do other centres. So it's a nice initiative, and it's worth going and having a look.
We actually had a question from a user called How Very Kiki. What is the best way? I mean, I know you've mentioned the Journalism Diversity Fund quite a bit now, but what is the best way for people from working class backgrounds to afford it, as they have noted that there are limited scholarship programs available? And someone else has asked if it is possible to pay for the course in instalments as well.
Yeah. So the working class background, I'd say I'm probably from a working class background originally, and I know how tricky it is to get in there. I didn't know anybody. It was almost like a fantasy job. Nobody that my family knew or had met had ever worked in the media, never mind being a journalist. So the JDF is super sensitive to that. They produce diversity reports every so often. You can go and read them, and people will call out class. So definitely, if that's in your mind, go and have a chat to them, contact them, and see what you can do. Yes, there is flexibility on how you can pay. If you come on the part-time course, you can pay in 6 sort of monthly instalments. There's no interest on it. Let's say you applied now and you're off to place. When you turn up, you pay your first of 6 instalments. If you come on the fast track, we do it over 3 months, 3 monthly payments.
Thank you. Obviously, diversity and inclusion is always a really important topic in journalism. And, every single year, the diversity report by the NCTJ will get released, and the stats are always a bit disappointing, to say the least. And as we've already established, undertaking the qualification of the NCTJ can seem quite intense from the outside. So how accessible is the course for students who perhaps have a disability or are neurodivergent? Is there extra support available to enable them and support them in completing the course?
I think from our perspective, students that come and study with us, we do all we can to help them. We've had students before, disabled students and neurodiverse students. We will sit down with them and say, how can we help you? Tell us what we can do to make to make this right for you. So we do that. In terms of the NCTJ, there are some things that they do. There is, for some exams, you can get extra time, for example, or maybe we've got a student who's done exams before using voice-activated software. So there are those kind of things. Sean, I don't know if you want to pick up on that one as well.
Yeah, no, Ali's right. I mean, there's that sort of official examining body thing, and then the technique we use is that we'll break classes down into smaller groups. We'll assign copy tutors to them. So you might have one tutor and there might be 5 people feeding back on your copy. But often that will be one-on-one. So Ali and I, the past couple of days, have been quite a lot of one-on-one. And of course, that means you can tailor your feedback to those individual people and be more cognizant of individuals' needs. But it's all about working with the particular student on their particular needs. And most students are, aware of what they need, and we're happy to accommodate.
Got a few outlier questions that are sort of on my personal list. But something that quite a few people mentioned as well was for those who are interested in broadcast journalism, do you feel that this particular qualification is a good fit for them?
It is, but if you want to do so broadcast is a module. On our basic kind of level 5 that we've been talking about today, we don't include broadcast specifically in it. But there are, with some of the apprentices we work with, broadcasting gets included there. So you need to look at what's being offered, wherever you're applying, whether it's with us or elsewhere. Have a look if broadcast is something you want to do. But we do video, which is a bit like broadcast, as part of all our courses.
Someone actually picked out, when you mentioned some of the newer modules earlier about the digital and the AI modules specifically, is it possible for students to perhaps study a singular module without having to take the full diploma as like a top-up upskill situation?
With us, no. We kind of sell or deliver the package which gets you to your diploma. But if you go direct to the NCTJ, they do offer individual modules. I think some of them are remote learning, which we touched on before, and that might be of interest to particular folk. The AI one at the moment, for example, you can go along to the NCTJ, there's a module there you can do.
We've got a few, get my words out. We've got a few questions from a more international perspective. So, what kind of funding, is there funding available for international students?
Nothing specific that I'm aware of. Maybe there is funding in the particular nation that you're in, and I wouldn't be aware of that, scholarships, international scholarships, that kind of thing. So other than that, I'm not aware of anything, I'm afraid.
And how hard would you say, or what level of proficiency in English would you say that an international student would need before perhaps considering to undertake this course?
You need a pretty good standard. I would say probably a pretty good standard, because we're teaching different concepts of how to write. It's quite academic. A lot of students come to us having had more of an academic background, and we're trying to teach them how to write in an entirely different way. So for a news story, so I think probably I would say a good level of English. Sean?
Yeah, no, I agree. The essential journalism exam is one of the bedrock exams, and they will mark you down if your written English, for example, is not great, but they won't give you any marks if it is great. So even if you're as it were a homegrown student here, poor English would be a problem for you. Grammar not being good, spelling not being good, that can be an issue. So Ali's right, you'd need a pretty good standard of English. This is not a course to learn English on, if you know what I mean.
When choosing a qualification, longevity is really important, and future plans may even see people move abroad. So how does the NCTJ fare on an international basis? Is it equivalently respected by other countries?
As far as I know, yes, but all laws are different, of course. They all operate within a jurisdiction. So, for example, in my previous life, I ran a team of, I can't remember, 200 to 300 people around the world, some of whom are journalistically trained, and of course they're all different. So colleagues coming through journalism school in the US would not necessarily have any understanding of libel, for example, in a UK sense. So aspects of it carry over, but how, depending on where in the world you are and you're looking out, I couldn't say for sure how the NCTJ would rank, but I would have thought it was pretty well thought of.
A question that we got submitted before the session, and I'm just going to read it out to you. and then you can give me your thoughts on it. So I'm a 30-year-old on a mid-senior level salary with content, SEO, and marketing experience. Would it be plausible to expect to enter journalism on a similar salary upon completion of an NCTJ? What seniority of job roles will the NCTJ qualify me for?
I think that's a tricky, different question to answer, especially the person who asked the question didn't kind of give an indication of what their salary is.
That's very true. I presume
mean,
around the 30 grand mark or so, perhaps.
So what I would say is that journalism is notorious for being not the best paid industry in the world. It has lots and lots of benefits. It's a fascinating career. You'll never have a dull day being in journalism. But I think most journalists you speak to won't say that they necessarily got into it for the money. Starting salaries can really change and really fluctuate depending on where you go to, from sort of around 20,000 up until we have seen some students that go to places where it's sort of approaching 30,000, like GB News for example pays really quite well. So it depends on the job afterwards, but I don't think you would expect a fantastic salary, especially starting out.
Yeah, there's a report. I think it's available on their website, the NCTJ website. It's produced, I think, in April this year, and it looks at kind of destinations of NCTJ students, and they give a salary range. I think it's going to be, Ali's right, about 24 to about £30,000, and they compare it to what people from other courses might expect to earn. And journalism comes out of it okay, but it may take you a while to earn your massive 6 or 7 figure salary. So yeah, but I don't know. I think if I may, I think a different way of asking the same question would be: I have taught people who had a marketing background, digital marketing background, and what they were one of the first people to secure a job off the course. And the reason for that is that when they, if you like, marketed themselves, they were quick to point to the fact that not only did they have this brilliant qualification, but also they knew a bit about how to use these skills. And so often in B2B publications and in more specialist areas, that might be particularly attractive. So, for example, if you were working, I don't know, on a airlines magazine and you had been an airline pilot, that might be particularly attractive to them, and you can use your knowledge from elsewhere as part of your appeal.
Obviously, job prospects after the qualification are super important to everyone at the minute.
Yeah.
And the market is very competitive. There's been lots of redundancies and publications closing. So is there any kind of support available within PA Media to help graduates get jobs afterwards, or link them up, or anything like that?
Yeah, really early on in the course, we'll provide you with contacts, even if you're just looking for work experience. We'll do some of that. We constantly share, indeed, from Journal Resources, anywhere I see a job, we'll tell you good places to go and look for jobs. We'll look over letters that you put together. We'll take a look at CVs to help you out. We'll often bring in guest speakers. We expect you to tap them up for their contacts and to build your network using your LinkedIn and so on. An example of that was something I was at last week over at News UK, and they had 2 recruiters in the room there, and we were introducing people to them. Dow Jones were there, looking for people. Some of the people there had already qualified for NCTJ, kind of like alumni, if you like, and other people were still on the course. And I know at least one of the people who was there last week, who'll finish his course this week, has already secured a job off the back of that. So our trainers are all working out in industry. They will help you, support you, and your cohort of friends and other students that you'll meet while you're in here are all great contacts for helping you to get on the career ladder. And indeed move around as you go on. 20 years from now, you'll all be sitting there thinking, goodness, I went on that Journal Resources course and just look at me now.
I think as well, to follow up on that, so because our tutors all kind of pretty much, most of them still work in the industry or have good contacts. So if we know a student is particularly interested in that area, for example, broadcast, we've got this guy who works for Sky, go and have a chat with him, and he may pass on some contacts for you to speak to. I know we had a former student who was talking to about features. It's not my background actually, but I know a lot of features journalists, and so I'm a little bit further on in my career. I know some more people in some more higher up positions. So I handed over some contacts last week saying, speak to this person, speak to that person. So a lot of it is about kind of building those networks, as Sean said.
Thanks so much for the advice. We've got about 5 minutes left. So if anyone else has any questions they want to pop into the chat, make haste. But I've got a few more questions myself as well. So there is the NCTJ, which is a level 5 diploma. But there is also the NQJ, which is level 6, if I'm correct. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if you're someone who is perhaps coming in with a bit more worldly job experience, which would be better for you to study in that case?
So we just run the level 5. There are different entry requirements for the level 6 qualification. One of them being that to sit the exams for that, you have to have worked as a paid journalist for 18 months. So it's very much a senior qualification for people who are in the industry, maybe in their first job, looking to move on to their second. I think one of the other requirements is that you have the gold standard NCTJ Diploma. So that's A to C in all of your subjects at level 5, plus 100 words a minute in shorthand, if that's applicable to you. There are gold standard diplomas without that shorthand. So it's not one that we run. It is one that you would get in touch with. You would either do through your employer or speak to the NCTJ about, for example, if you've been working as a freelance journalist.
Final question from the chat. Someone is asking if you do any internships as part of the course, or any work experience part of the course, perhaps.
Yeah, we don't do an internship as such, but if, during your initial application, and I always say, don't agonize over it, just apply, because when you come to interviews, it's quite a friendly process. We do encourage people to do work experience. And if you're doing the fast track course, in week 6 of the fast track, you can choose a specialism. You can choose sport, you can choose mags and features, or you can choose work experience. And what that means is we'll encourage you to find somebody who is going to say to you each Friday for 10 weeks, come and work with us. And that could be on a national newspaper, it could be local, it could be all kinds of things. And indeed, our PA newsroom has been really good about taking people. So the recent local elections, and indeed the upcoming general election, lots of the students have been involved in covering that. In a sort of, they haven't been there 24 hours, but round the clock coverage as those big dates move forward. And that can be a great way to get experience under your belt, make more of those contacts, meet their contacts, and begin tapping into that world of work that at the moment maybe feels a little bit alien, a bit tough to get over the big wall, but suddenly you'll be part of it, and you'll be making these important connections.
2 more questions, if I may. Oh, sorry, was Alison?
No, you're good. You're good.
It's hard to tell sometimes. I keep hearing noises.
Yeah.
So is the fast track course regarded any differently by employers compared to the course over a longer duration?
No, there is an important difference though. The fast track course, if you do it with PA training or PA Media Academy as we are now, you will do shorthand as part of the course. And if you do the shorthand, you do court reporting with it. If you go the other way through the part-time route, we don't offer the shorthand, and you will do the long-form digital journalism or the MAGS course as part of the core curriculum. So they're the only differences. But it just depends what an employer is looking for. They're both, straight off the shelf NCTJ Diploma. But if you did want to show off your shorthand capabilities, I'd say go fast track.
And I guess the most important question for today, how do people apply?
We have a pretty easy to use website, a PA Media Academy website. I think we're going to share the link with you. You just go on there. There's lots of kind of quite helpful, I hope quite accessible information. There's a little form there. Honestly, don't overthink it. Just put down who you are, what you want to do, and away you go. I get students who agonize. I don't know if I want to do the magazine specialism, but don't worry. Just apply, and at the interview stage and everything, it's nice and friendly, and we can discuss it from there. It's really simple, and it's quite a quick turnaround. So once we hear from you, you will hear from us within a few days.
Yeah, and we get students as well that think that they want to do, magazine journalism, and then realise that actually they want to go and do work experience, or they want to go and do sports journalism. So there is that flexibility to change once you've started the course, because like Sean said, it's from week 6 that you start to pick those modules, so you can really get a flavour for the course, knuckle down, get the shorthand. It's still very important for some jobs. It's a great one to have, if you get it. There's lots of flexibility there. So don't overthink it, like Sean says.
Amazing. Thanks so much for your time today. Thanks everyone for joining us as well. We have some questions that we didn't manage to get answered, but we'll also send over further info and resources as soon as we can anyway. Sure. And yes, have a wonderful day. Enjoy the sun. And thanks so much, Alison and Sean.
Thank you.